So, hi everybody. Hope you enjoying learning from the Economist and the documentary made by the Federal Reserve. And so, in this video, we're going to start to look at should we have an independent Fed? But first of all, we have to understand the current Fed, how independent it is, how independent it is. So after you watching the previous videos, you understand the structure and history of the Fed. And you should understand that there was a debate that should we have the independent Fed, independent from the president and the Congress, or should we have the Fed totally rely on the president and the Congress? So look at the current Fed. Are they independent and how independent they are? So that's what we're going to look at here. Oops. So when we look at the independent Fed, and we have to look at the two different kind of independent. One is called the instrument independent. That is, will the Fed have the freedom to making their own monetary policies, have that freedom free from the control of the Congress, from the president. Another kind of independent is called goal independence. So in the previous video, you look at the function of the Fed, such as keep the stability of the economy. So if you haven't watched it, make sure you watch it because you'll have a better understanding about the goal of the Fed. Because I understand many of you guys are thinking to work for the financial institutions. And so when you become one of the player in the financial institution, employee in a financial institution, and you have to know what is the goal of the rule maker, which is the Fed. So that's why we look at what the Fed had their independent goals. So basically, if for instance, if the president is thinking about economic growth, can the Fed are thinking about my main goal is to keep the stability of the economy. So those are the two independence the Fed are looking for: the instrument independence and the goal independence. And so the question here is, why the Fed will be able to have this kind of independence. So think about yourself. So when you will have your own independence, yes, of course, when you find a job, you can have the financial source to support your living, and you are independent from your parents, right? So the same idea, why the Fed will be have this kind of power to keep the independence. They have the independent revenue, so they can issue their own bond, and then to keep their financial stabilities, and so to keep their generating revenues. So they do, the reason they have the independence to using their monetary policy to set up their goals is because they had independent revenue. And so think about currently we had the COVID-19. And so obviously you notice that the policy came out from the Congress, and the policy came from the Fed, and the policy came from the president. They are independent, but currently they are holding the same goal. That is reboost the economy because the crisis caused by the COVID-19. So obviously in this situation, we can see all three agents share the same goals, but they are using an independent instrument. And again, the Fed can have this kind of freedom is because their revenue is generated by themselves. They are not rely on the Fed, the Congress, not rely on the president to give them revenue so that they can have that power to perform their independence. And however, is the Fed totally independent currently? The answer is no. Why? Because the Fed structure is written by the Congress and is subject to change at any time. And also, the Congress has intention to control the Fed's power. Therefore, they pass certain act to control the independence of the Congress. How about the president? Obviously, the Fed is not totally independent from the Congress. It doesn't mean the Fed is totally independent from the president. The answer is not. Why? So the president can indirectly control the Fed. So for instance, the Congress can, as we know, the Congress might have the direct impact on the Fed because they can set up the law to restrict the power of the Fed, the independence of the Fed. For the president, he or she won't be able to do that. However, he or she can independently indirectly affect the independence of the Fed by influence the Congress, and so they can he or she can push in the Congress to pass in the law to restrict the independence of the Fed. And also, if you pay attention on the previous video, when we look at the structure of the Fed, we talk about the member of the Fed and the chairman of the Fed. So actually, the president have that power to appoint a member and appoint the chair of the board of governor of the Federal Reserve System. Therefore, he or she can have kind of like a control on the Fed. So the Fed is not totally independent from the president. So the president only had the indirect impact on the Fed. So this kind of indirect impact on the Fed sometimes is very weak. So for instance, the current chair, Joe Powell, is appointed by the president, President Trump. But you can notice that no matter how the Trump commenting on the Joe Powell tried to acting independently, and so that's the moment we see that the president had a really weak power to affecting the chair, so the chair won't have the great impact on the Fed. So in next video, we're going to look at, and so should the Fed be independent or dependent? So here we're discussing the current situation we are facing the Federal Reserve. So next video, we'll try to discussing what's the tendency of the changes of the Fed. Should we keep it independent or should we keep it dependent on the Congress or the president?